What is going on, guys? It's Everett here. In this video, we're gonna cover Bulgarian split squats for bigger, stronger quads. So this is technically video number 2 in the technique series I started. Video number 1, if you haven't seen it already, is on single leg deadlifts for hamstring growth. Now, I talked about in that video a little bit about what this series is going for, and that's not just technique or safe lifting form. It's getting down to the nitty-gritty of how to use a movement to actually grow your muscles and get stronger. You can do a movement that looks technically sound, but you're not going to get the most out of it based on what you're doing internally with your muscles throughout that movement. So that's what we're diving into here. Before we get started, quick announcement. Starting October 1st, 2020, I'm going to do a 10-day mobility challenge series. So it's going to be one video per day, 10 days straight, a mobility routine for each day. So if you haven't already subscribed and hit the notification bell, be sure you do so. And if you're watching this after October 1st, 2020, that entire series is already up. So go ahead and check it out and start training your mobility. All right, guys, so to kick this off, we're gonna work on the back leg first, which is what a lot of people skip over. Now, this back leg you're using for stability. So if this isn't set up right, it's gonna affect your movement with the front leg, which will affect your growth and your strength gains. So this back leg, I treat it as almost like a mobility movement, and I set up a little bit different than most people. So I'll go through what I do, then we'll break it down why I do it. So I set up with the ball of my foot down and my toes up in extension. A lot of people point the toes, especially if you have running shoes on or cross trainers, that gets pretty wiggly back here. So it's an active position for me. I've got my toes dug in, just like I'm about to sprint and I'm down on the track and I'm about to take off, all right? So toes down. I've also got a more narrow stance. A lot of people will kick a leg out for this, and again, it's because they don't have this back hip extension mobility to get in this position and then to move in this position. So it's almost like a conventional deadlift stance for me. Now, immediately when you get in that position, this might feel really tight. Quads, hips, even the adductors of the groin muscles. So simple fix, and this won't affect your gains on this front leg, but it's to move to a lower bench or box or a couple 45-pound plates, something like that. If this is really tight, especially on one side, simple stretch you can do in between sets. I've actually got a full video, I'll put it up here. It's the couch stretch for your quads and your hip extension, your hip flexors. So throw that into the mix. But this back leg is really an active position for me. Typically when I run a program with Bulgarian split squats, my hip extension and hip mobility increases. So it's kind of like two birds with one stone. So now onto the front leg. We're gonna step forward. It's usually a little bit more forward than you think to keep the shin fairly vertical. A little bit knee forward in front of the ankle is fine. There's some debate, how far should knees travel forward in the squat? That's a completely different video. But for the sake of strength and muscle development, we're gonna keep the shin fairly vertical. Now, what tends to happen for a lot of people, maybe just on one side, maybe both sides, is as they squat, this knee drops in like this, okay? Easy fix. If you've got a mirror or an iPhone, you can take a video of yourself to check if that's happening to you. You can also just look straight down. If it looks like that knee isn't in line with the middle toes, it's dropping in like this, cue that knee up and out. Now, it's not as simple as that. For most people, their knee drops in for a reason. It's not just because they don't know the technique. Their knee drops in because of lack of hip rotation or very tight adductor or groin muscles. So as you cue that knee up and open, easy, done. The hip though adjusts itself, okay? Something's gotta give. In this case, it's the knee. We fix the knee, now the hip takes up the slack. So when you're looking straight down at your leg, most people, for the right leg forward, the entire leg tends to rotate like clockwise and then left counterclockwise. And when you look down, you can actually see more of your adductors or your hamstring, and you might notice this hip kind of drops. So again, the cue for that is to almost like push the hip up to the side. And for a lot of people, cueing that hip into a correct position isn't enough because again, it's a mobility issue. So the stretch I like to throw in on my off days or in between sets is the modified pigeon pose. I've got a full video I'll put right up here, but this is what the modified pigeon pose looks like. And for the adductors, the back leg of the 90-90 tends to help out the adductors quite a bit. So again, these are stretches that depending on what you're going through, you can throw them in between sets, or maybe these are just the things you need to focus on on your off days. So that's the bare bones technique, a little bit more in depth than a lot of people go through, but now we're gonna focus on little things you can adjust to maximize your growth and your strength. So first off, when we're doing the single leg Bulgarian split squat, if I've got single weight and I've got it outside my body, that's gonna tend to hit a little bit more of the glute and the hip. If I hold it inside the leg, it's gonna tend to hit a little bit more adductor. And obviously you've got your quad muscles, and you can bias which quad muscles have more force being put on them. So typically having the weight inside will hit a little closer to the knee, and then having the weight outside will hit more of the meaty part, the biggest part, the belly of the quad of the upper thigh right here. So that wasn't a very precise answer on which exact quads you're hitting, but in general, inside, closer to the knee, outside, more like mid part of the quad. And if you really want to destroy your quads, hold on to something. So we covered this in the single leg deadlift. A lot of people, their sticking point or the limiting factor is balance. So this is great to build up balance, but if we're really going for size and strength, holding on to something, a squat rack or a PVC pipe, this will become a brutal exercise. If you go too hard, you might puke. No joke, it gets rough. Going to failure or drop sets or mid weight and mid reps for lots of sets, like 4 to 5 sets, say like a 5 by 8 with a mid-level weight, will destroy your quads. You'll get really big quads if you run that rep range holding on to something for like 4 to 5 weeks. It'll really balance out the left or right side of the body, and your strength will go through the roof mixed in with a good squatting program. So again, where the weight is placed, if you got 2 weights or 1 weight on either side, and holding on to something to take balance out of the equation, simple tricks like that. Say you have 2 versions of yourself. One version just does normal Bulgarian split squats because they're told to do so in a program. The other adjusts how they're holding the weight and holding on to something and those little technique cues. This person will get all the gains and this person will get frustrated. So there you have it, Bulgarian split squats done the right way. Hope that really helps you out. And if you like the video, please take the quick second to hit the like button. It helps the channel, it helps more people actually find this video, which in turn helps their Bulgarian split squats get better as well. And as always, I've got my hip mobility e-course, 16 videos on my website in order. It's gonna teach you hip flexibility, strengthening, stability, and mobility all in one place. It's 29 bucks. So if you're interested in that type of training, go ahead and check it out. Until the next video, thanks for watching. See you soon.